My mom is a nurse in a COVID unit. It's nerve-wracking, especially since she's 63 and in a more vulnerable age group.
I started working at the COVID unit. When the surge started, we don't have choice but to work with COVID patients. Honestly, I was scared. I wanted to cry because I wasn't expecting the first time I would be working. I wasn't prepared. So I don't have any idea how to handle a COVID patient and as well as to protect myself.
My mom is one of about 150,000 Filipinx American nurses in the United States. That's about 4% of all nurses. But Filipino nurses account for more than 31% of the deaths from COVID 19. This made me want to delve deeper into the history of Filipinx nursing migration in the United States and their struggles throughout this pandemic.
At the beginning of the pandemic, I think it was in April, I was feeling a lot of anxiety because both of my parents are nurses in their 60s, which was identified as a high risk group for COVID. But both of my parents had to work, on the COVID unit, or all the hospital was converted into COVID units. So I was thinking about how my mother came here during the AIDS epidemic.
I was 21 years old when I came to America on September 1989. It's like the beginning of AIDS in 89. We're just orientees. We just want to do our job. So we just go to the patient and take care of them. Later that we know that the patient is an AIDS patient. I have a patient that vomit blood in front of you from the bed all the way to the wall. That's how projectile the vomiting is. And then you feel sorry for them because they keep dying at that time.
The history of nursing dates back to 1907, following the Philippine American War during the occupation of the Philippines by the United States, with the founding of the first American School of Nursing in Manila. And this relationship continued throughout the 1900s, even to present times. But we see the first really big wave of nursing migration in the 1960s with the passage of the Immigration and Nationality Act in 1965.
This bill says simply that from this day forth, those wishing to immigrate to America shall be admitted on the basis of their skills and their close relationships to those already here.
But also at this time in the Philippines, Marcos is rising to power. The labor policies that he implemented while he was in office facilitated but also promoted the migration of Filipinos abroad for work. In the 1980s, we have the AIDS epidemic in the United States. There's several different epicenters. What happens here is that American-born nurses were refusing to work during the AIDS epidemic, and this gap in labor was filled with foreign-born Filipino nurses, also Jamaican nurses were a big part of this as well.
I remember when we first came, American nurses doesn't want to touch them. They're scared, I think, because of the words AIDS at that time. I think American nurses throw all those foreign nurses for those kind of things.
So I actually got a lot of heat on Twitter because that initial tweet had the word disposable in it. What I had meant by disposable labor is kind of what I was describing earlier when explaining the migration theories, how after American-born nurses refused to work during times of epidemic or pandemic, foreign-born nurses were brought in to fill that gap. And this is kind of an offshoot of disposable labor theory, which posits that under capitalism, people's bodies are and labor are treated as disposable resources.
I myself, I don't feel safe because we were not given proper PPE to protect ourselves. We just make use of some materials to protect ourselves, like the blood pressure cuff we use for patients. We use that to cover our legs. It was scary.
You fear for everything. We have three nurses at home. Chelsea, Kathleen, and me. Chelsea and Kathleen, at the surge of the first wave of coronavirus, they become positive, both of them. For me, AIDS at that time, it's not as scary as this coronavirus because you don't see people dying in front of you day by day. With coronavirus, day by day, morning, afternoon, at night, people were dying. You feel overwhelmed with all this patient.
Modesty aside, it's not because I am a Filipino. Filipino nurses are, I would say, hardworking, and we are compassionate, nurturing in taking care of patients, and I'm proud to say we are.
I think like the biggest thing about being Filipino is family. She treats all her patients as if they are her family.
Hopefully, people will know that this is still not a joke. I think they forget about the surge in March and they think that it won't gonna come back anymore. So hopefully people will gonna think twice or think deeper what's going on around them.